So what we're going to do is, well, first take a look at the concept sculpt that was this guy's face turning into a monster and then turning back, but with no topology, just all high res. Then the topologized version of him, which you can control his mouth now. To transforming his whole body and animating it. Just having him go to a regular wolfman into Hulk super wolfman. So we need to take that and make it move. So we'll start by taking this mesh, which is made up of several meshes, including his teeth and eyes and tongue, and move it into 3D Max and rig it. So here he is in Max, but he's a very small scale, and I'm going to want to render him in V-Ray, so scale is important. What I'll do is import a scene I've made previously, and I've also set up his skeleton as a biped. So there's that big skeleton. Take a look at the layer manager. And you find my old geo that I used to line up the skeleton to, and lighting information like the camera, the softbox lights, and the base. And then in here we have a circle that I've made to scale everything to that I make. So I brought in these two new ZBrush objects, and they're very small, and I need them to match up to my skeleton. So I just go to Tools, Align, or Alt-A, and then select the circle with that tool and align, position, orientation, and scale. Maybe my position got off a little bit on the skeleton, but it looks pretty good on the guy, the wolfman. So I'm going to go into this, which is a bit of the biped in figure mode, and select it. And figure mode is just setting up its default pose. So I can move it back into place, which is about there. And then if I turn off figure mode, it will jump back into the poses that I've made and the keyframes that I have set up, which I can't delete from here. So I'm going to take this geometry from the wolfman, his head, his arms, and his pants, and leave his teeth and eyes. These objects are going to get skinned, all with one modifier. Skin to the biped. So once I bring up the skin modifier, it shows 1 between the 3 objects. And then I want to add bones to it. These are the bones that will deform it. So the biped is Usually all you have to select if you're doing physique. With skin you have to do all of the bones that you want to have affected. And you hold down Shift and Control to select multiples. And I'm reading all these, sort of. Because the more bones I have, the more complicated skinning is. And really I want less. And I also want to parent the eyes and teeth to the skeleton. Let's unselect anything that has a measuring tape next to it, because that's not a bone. And even though I can skin to geometry and helpers, I want to only skin to bones. That way they're not in the list when I'm trying to narrow down the skinning. So I selected all those bones. Now they're automatically set up with a loose skinning that I can use to deform my mesh when I rotate in local mode. And if I hide my biped, you can see, oops. First I put this on freeze so I don't select it again. You can see that it's skinned loosely. Now I also want to make sure that his eyes and teeth are attached to the skeleton, so I select his eyes, outer eye, inner eye, teeth, and I'm going to parent them or link them to the skull. You'll see that his jaw is skinned and soft, so it's partly skinned to his neck because I skinned it with it open. So those are the first weights that I want to adjust. Select Geo, or select your bones by turning off everything and leaving on bone display. That way you don't have to go through and pick individually. I just reskinned them really fast because after I tried it, I saw that I didn't like the way his fingers were deforming. I don't think I'm gonna like this either. Okay, so I made a quick pose. I didn't really fix any of the skinning errors. We put it on bend links mode and test out the spine for twisting. And that looks pretty good. But there's some problems with his face. Like I said, the skinning on his face has changed. It's not rigid. We'll fix that. So go into figure mode, get your model back into the T-pose. I have to unfreeze the mesh, hide the biped. Select it, and pick its skin modifier. We're going to look at the head bone, which is of course connected to the neck bone, but they're not in that order. No particular order. So there's the head bone. Let me see what vertices that's affecting. We go into wireframe. You can see the head bone is moving most of the things I want it to, but it's doing it very softly on the jaw. It's using this envelope that you see wrapped around his head to decide what to affect. Envelopes are good, but they're not very accurate. So for the head, we want a little bit more accuracy. So now I'm going to bring up the weight tool and make sure that I have vertice mode selected and turn off envelopes. And you can see I can actually make vertex selections, and they will tell me what they're getting affected by. So jump out of wireframe. I'm going to make pretty symmetrical selections, so I'm going to go into orthographic view. So I can select symmetrically and then grow the selection. I know I want these to be 100% to the head. So I'm going to press 1. It's 100% to the head bone. I'm basically working around the ears, because the ears have their own little control there. So the other bad areas are in the face. Let's see where I'm at here. In the front view. So I'll take a symmetrical selection down the face, check the side to unselect the back because I didn't turn off back face masking. And then grow this selection so I get to the ears. Deselect the neck. And I'm going to make these 100% to the head too. Let's see what that looks like. Looks like I can probably select through about here and tell those to be 100% to the neck too. I can also take blend and make them smooth if they get too twisty. So now when I go put on the pose, turn on biped freeze objects, motion panel, you see his head and teeth still maintain their form. It looks like we got a real problem here, so let's fix that. So a little smoothing, and that's fixed. A little pocket, it's a little bit better. I found I can control the OpenGL display of these V-Ray scenes with the logarithmic exposure control parameter in the viewport, which is nice. Let's see what those things do in real time. Another problem area is usually fingers. A lot of the vertex assignments end up on the actual hand rather than the fingers themselves. So it leaves a lot of them behind. Pretty easy to fix though. Back in figure mode, let's hide a background. And hide the biped. And unfreeze the geo. We go edit the skin. Envelopes. Most of which I have hidden. If I unhide the biped, you see there bones again. Okay, so we'll start with the index finger. Trying to get it to frame in on these verts. These little gray lines represent the bones, so if I show you the bone, you can see they go from there to there, there to there. And that one's not lined up very well. Okay, so I'll start with this one. I know all of these verts need to be assigned to this finger bone at 100%. And the one right on the vert line, right on the center line, you can do this with loop. You select two verts, it'll select the loop. You know that should be between 12 and 11, 50% 12, 50% 11, 0% hand. You see the numbers to the side? Those are telling me how much influence it's getting from those different bones, as well as this color that tells me that same information. I'm going to jump over to the top view. Oh, it's not good. Because his hands point down, I can't see it. So, check the front. Perspective it is. Since I have to use a perspective view and his body gets in the way, I could isolate it, but I can also just fly in real close, like this. And it's hard to get a straight rotation on the camera, so I can get an actual selection that's square. So instead of using my favorite way to select, I have to change rectangular selection to either polygon selection or loop. That way I can select easier. Okay, so where did I leave off? Went from that bone to that bone. And these are the last ones I changed. These two. Loop. so that one, that one, the next loop are all rigid to finger bone 11. So 1. You should take away influence from everything else. I'll take that line, and that's going to go between finger bone 11 and 2 of 1. So 50% 1, 50% 11, 0% and 50% 1, 50% 11, 0% 4. It likes to throw the numbers around. So that'll fix the finger enough to use it. I've buried his knuckle back further than it should be because he's turned into a monster. I want his fingers to get more stubby. But in a human, you would have that knuckle go all the way back to here. This is a monster, not a human. So when it's time to copy the weights to the other hand, I can go to mirror mode and copy, paste, copy, place green to blue bones, or place green to blue verts. So now the fingers on the left and right are the same, but also his entire weighting is evened out. So now I want to test his finger. I'm going to jump out of figure mode. I'm going to go to one of these poses. Maybe in this pose I'm going to freeze the geo so I don't select it. Select the finger that I was messing with, and you can see it no longer affects the hand when I bend the finger, and it can be posed. And we want to check it on this side too, but it should be fine. So now just do it to the rest of the finger.